Hey y'all, August 1st, 2024, here at Twin Oaks Family Farm. Thanks for joining us on Twin Oaks Farm Poultry, flock of Cornish rock cross meat chickens here, 430 of them. This is day 8 for them, so 8 days into our production schedule. They arrived here July 25th, 2024. They were ordered from a hatchery in Southwest Ohio. We're in Southeast Ohio. So they were shipped through the United States mail, through the Postal Service, to get here to us. And we call the day they move in day 1. So on August 1st here, we're out to day 8. We have fed them 200 pounds of 22% protein value meat chicken feed made by Kalmbach Feeds from Ohio. We get it at our favorite feed mill, Beverly Feed and Equipment in Southeast Ohio, but it is made here in the same state that we live in, and Beverly Feed is a Kalmbach dealer, so we really prioritize the Kalmbach feed in our flocks. We use it consistently in every flock, and we like to use the 22% protein start to finish meat bird feed. So we highly recommend that if y'all are raising meat birds. Now, kind of keeping in mind with that, we found, at least in our production system, that's a perfect fit. And our production system is raising them inside a building, confined. They have large doorways that open up, so we get indirect sunlight, we get a lot of fresh air, a lot of air movement, but ultimately our goal is to keep them safe from predators and keep them close to food and close to water, and keep the living conditions excellent for them and make the living conditions match their needs. And we believe that that is the threshold for success with raising meat chickens, is to become familiar with their needs at their different ages and stages of start, grow, and finish, and to work at making the living conditions, the ambient conditions in their space, make that match up with their needs throughout production. So the closer that ambient conditions are to their comfort range, and the less stress that the birds experience, the more effectively they can convert feed to meat as they grow and finish. So we want to make everything really favorable for them to utilize all the energy they get from their feed into growing. So like at this stage, we call this the start phase, and the energy that they get from their feed is going into supporting the establishment of their organ function, their internal organs. It's going into starting feather development. They'll feather in. Feathers are almost entirely protein. Interestingly enough, feathers are protein, but they're a non-digestible protein, human-wise and mammal-wise, but they can be made digestible by being pulverized and powdered, but they're about 91% protein. So as we see these little birds, like at a week old, if we kind of zoom in on some here, see how close we can get. We can see at the wingtips, we can see the distinct white feathering that's really identifiable with Cornish rock cross meat chickens starting to come in on the wingtips. We're also starting to see pretty recognizable feather development at the tail. We're starting to see that kind of pokey quill look on the tail. So they're getting, like there's one, okay, laying down there, we can see some of the tail feathering. So what we know is a lot of that protein that they're ingesting right now is going into feather development, okay? Here's some we can get, like a look over top. We can see all that feathering on the tips of the wings. That's where they feather first, and then they'll gradually feather out from there more and more, okay? So a lot of that protein that they're getting right now going into feather development. So we kind of recognize this as a starting phase where these chicks are getting better at thermoregulation, getting better at being able to metabolize their food, digest it, utilize it, and seeing them get some growth actually in their body mass, but seeing their feathering also come in. So we're calling that the start phase. So the feed is going to support all those things in the start phase. Okay, and then like in about another week, we will consider the birds to be in the growing phase. You'll see much more feathering on them. The chickie fluff will practically be gone, and we'll start to see them get more of their, what I call like their skeletal structure size, like whatever frame size in its skeleton that bird is able to attain. That's what the feed is supporting in that growing phase, kind of in the middle of our production. So production length for us with Cornish rock cross meat chickens is either 35 days up to 42 days, okay? So about the middle of that, we're gonna call that the grow phase. And that's basically where we're seeing the size of the skeletal structure develop, okay? Hello. And then at the end, we want to see the birds in a finished stage, and we kind of know and can recognize that they're in a finished stage when we see basically like the skeletal size, the frame size, their structure, like their legs and their skeletal structure. When we see that kind of staying the same, but we see their appetite become heavier, and we see them really start to fill out in terms of meat conversion, that's when we're at the finished stage. So we want to get the birds to finished stage and have them really filled out, having converted feed to meat in the finish when it's time to take them to the processor, okay? So this flock is going to be, well, it was scheduled to be 35 days, but I think it really, if we follow the calendar out, I think we're going to find out that they go to the processor on what we're going to call production day 34. They had a layover in shipping, and actually I think they were actually probably in shipping like 28 to 30 hours and ended up in a post office overnight. So that was really their day one, but they didn't get to move in on it. So that's going to impact us, I think. And the 35-day timetable, we're kind of, I guess, experimenting with that, for lack of a better word. But we've often found with raising livestock, raising Cornish rock cross meat chickens, we want to do a good job taking care of them, but you don't really know the impacts of things until you really practice raising them. And so I think that what we're probably going to find is that at 35 days, they're almost finished. Like they're at the finish stage, but maybe we would prefer 3 or 4 more days to let them fill out. But on the other hand, we found that out at 42 days, they're really like a day or two past finish. So we know we want to be in that window of raising meat chickens out to between 35 and 42 days. We haven't got it exactly down to where, maybe we want it to be day 38 or day 39. And it also can vary because it can be impacted by, what's going on with the ambient conditions. Like if as this flock goes on, if ambient conditions are ideal throughout production and like the outdoor temperature really cooperates with us, they're going to grow really quickly, fill out really quickly. The 35 days might be perfect. But if we get a lot of extreme heat that's way hotter than their comfort range, even though we're trying to cool them down with measures like fans and cool water, really high heat can cause them to not want to eat during those hottest times of the day. And then that condenses their eating into a shorter set of hours. So, you know, that can impact, well, how much do they grow, how much do they gain? But most definitely, you see the biggest increase in size in meat chickens, like at the very end of production, like in the last 7 to 10 days. So, you know, and that can somewhat depend and be relative to your production length, but most certainly that's when you really see the feed to meat conversion happen, is in that finishing stage when you're out to really the close to the end of your production length. So anyway, really though, so far these birds are doing great. We're really pleased that on our day 8 of production we have 430 birds. We started with 433. Unfortunately, one of those 433 was dead on arrival in the shipping boxes. One had a malformed beak, so even when we unloaded it and counted it into the flock population, we were like, oh, we don't know, that one, you know, with that beak being malformed, we figured maybe it wouldn't be able to eat well, and it ended up within a couple days being passed away. And then we had another one that it just looked like failure to thrive. It was on the small side when it arrived. So started with 433, and 8 days in we have 430. We've opened up the 5th bag of feed, so working on 250 pounds. And then what we experience of 250 pounds of feed that has been given to the birds so far, and what we experience with Cornish rock cross meat chickens is as they grow, their appetite grows with them, so the rate or pace at which they consume feed steadily increases more and more. So we do have a lot of feed to get into these birds, but I feel confident that as they grow and their appetite picks up and we transition away from these small capacity feeders and put in the large capacity feeders, we're going to be able to provide the feed to them. And if we get even the slightest cooperation from the weather and the temperatures stay mostly in their comfort zone, then that's going to help support their feed consumption rate as well. So hopefully we'll get all the 4,000 pounds of feed into them, and hopefully they'll grow just really super well. But I think also here in the next few days, I want to show y'all kind of a bigger picture here. So we're keeping the brooder space kind of in view, but the brooder space is really a little less than a third of the total floor space that we can make available to the birds. So probably in the next couple days, we're actually going to kind of shift those birds from where they are over to kind of this central section and almost double the amount of space that they have floor space wise. But what I'm anticipating is we're gonna totally take them off of this floor and actually move them over. So like, you know, we'll have to move these boxes, move the wheelbarrow, move the fan, change the configuration on the temporary barrier wall, and actually move those birds. They'll walk like through an opening on the floor. We're not going to have to pick them up and move them, but we'll actually shift those birds from there like to this middle section of the barn, but give them more room than they've got right now. And we'll actually be able to do that with more of those yellow transport crates. We'll be able to just make like a temporary wall over here, and that's going to kind of coincide with trying to get them into these large capacity feeders. But they have lots of floor space, but we feel like they're ready for a little more room, because as we put those big feeders in, you know, they take up some room, and we want to be able to let the birds have lots of floor space to move around in, and we want to minimize them bunching up into places, you know, like they're kind of right now they want to be like here, so they're kind of bunching up there. So we want to totally minimize that bunching up habit. So if we give them a little more room and make it a little more rectangular shape instead of kind of having some of these odd corners, that's going to help us accomplish that. So anyway, but so far so good. Day 8, and we're going out to about 35 days with them. So we'll keep you posted. Check back in with us at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. God bless y'all.